So let's say we've got everything, we've all saved up. How are we going to save? So we do File to save the project. Oops. There we go. We go File, Save, and this will save the project. So from here we would just go, oh yeah, that's our project. But that's just so we can continue working on it, right? When you're ready to bring this into Arnold or Game Engine or whatever, that's where we save our textures out. For that, we go File, Export Textures. And you'll see I have 4 materials here, one for the body, and if I open it up, it tells me all the maps it's going to generate. We want to choose what our output is going to be. So when I click in the configuration, that's where you choose. So in other words, bringing this into Arnold, we would choose the Arnold 5 AI Standard. And then now you see it'll send out a base color, metalness, roughness, normal, height, and emissive. And you make sure to choose what resolution you want these guys to be at. Right? Also, if you have the character or the object in, you've already set up a project in Maya, I would just change the export to the folder inside of the source images of your project. So in other words, I'd go in and I'd say, oh yeah, here's my source images, and I would just make a new folder in here called Hans or Jacques or whatever in the source images, and that's where my textures would spit out. Right? So let me, just so you can see the whole process, one that has more materials to it so you can kind of see it. I'm going to open up that previous one, Hans. So I've got him. I would go File, Export Textures. I'm going to choose Arnold 5 AI Standard. I am going to choose, let's go with a Targa. And then I'm just going to export them, and choose what folder. So I'm just going to make a brand new folder in my source images. Hans. Actually, let's just put you in the actual one. Select that folder, and it'll tell me, yep, Hans body color, Hans body metalness, Hans body roughness, all those. I hit export, and while it's exporting all those, I'm going to bring in Hans. Go to my project, open. Oops. And I need Hans in there actually, so I'm just going to make a brand new document and I'll have to import him in. And I just make sure that I have all the files that I'm going to need. So projects, Ohlone, and inside of the scenes, I'll bring Hans into here, copy, and just in case I need them, source images, I don't need all of them, but I'll just copy them there. Okay, so now I will import Hans into my scene. And there he is. Just for quickness, I'm just going to create a physical sky. Make sure that my camera can see everything. There we go. So if I actually do a render real fast, yep, there he is. Cool. Nice. All right. So now, how would I apply those materials inside of there? I'll just show you how to set up one, and that'll show you how to set them all up. Okay. So we'll go with the body first, or rather the body material. Because of the way he's set up personally, even though he has these multiple materials, his body is actually combined. So in other words, if I right click on the body material in the hyper shade and say select objects with material, oops, and I can actually close some of this stuff up because it's just wasting cycles. There we go. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. So what I would do, yeah, that's fine. I would replace that. So I'm going to right click on him, assign a new material with the AI standard surface. I'll just call this one AI body. And I would start to bring those textures in. Now the one important thing is how you bring them in and how you set them up for it to work properly. Okay, so the color goes into the color. That's an easy one. File. So I want to go to my Hans folder. This is the body. So I'm going to say body base color. Press 6. There it is. Nice. Check it out. See? He's glossy, but it's working just fine. Now, here's where it gets tricky when you're bringing in the other materials. It's not as point and click to get it to work right. So we want to get rid of this glossiness. We've got the hair. It actually is looking pretty good. So I'm going to go back up under metalness, file, And I want to choose the body metalness. There it is. But I have to change a few settings for it to work properly. So here's where you change it. Number one, instead of color space RGB, we change it to raw. That's the first thing. The next thing is we go under color balance and we say alpha is luminance. Okay, so now that one is plugged in. And I think that's it. So now I'm going to go back up. Now I go to the roughness in the specular. We do the exact same thing. File. Bring in the body roughness. Change sRGB to raw. Alpha is luminance. And what you'll notice now, do you see that? Do you see how certain parts are now shiny now, but others aren't? Like the metal parts are shiny, but the clothing isn't. The belt buckle has a little bit. You see that? The buttons. I have to do those settings for the metalness and the roughness to work properly. Now, let's go to the geometry, bump mapping. Now, here's where it also is a little weird. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this material because I want to set up my bump a little differently. And here it is here. I'm going to hit tab, type in normal, and I want an AI normal map. This goes into the normal camera, and in the input is where you bring in the normal map for the body. Let's set this guy to raw. And because of the way it's actually set up, I can control, let me hit 7. Actually, let's take a look at the render. And there we go. Now all of those different elements are actually... Oh, you know, there's one other thing I gotta do. Silly me. It'll just take a second. There we go. There we go. Check that out. The only other thing I might do... I can change the strength of the normal in here because I'm using an AI normal map. So if it's too heavy, and depending on what program I'm doing, if I need to, I can always flip some of the tangents if need be. But that, I've got my nice shiny metal here. I've got my normal map. I've got the nice little creases and cuts in the belt. The roughness and the metalness is working. Everything is copacetic. And then I would just continue that. The only difference is the one for the face, I would actually apply the material and I would use subsurface scattering. And the texture that I would use for his face, I would then go in and I would put the color map into the subsurface scattering color. And I'll save this video down, but does that make sense? And you could see like all the stuff is actually working pretty well in there. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So I will pause that.